The Mitchell family Christmas dinner was always an exercise in competitive wealth display. This year my brother Mark had outdone himself, hosting at his newly purchased mansion that he'd financed entirely on credit that, unbeknownst to him, my company now controlled. "Sarah," he smirked as I placed my modestly wrapped packages under the enormous Christmas tree. "Homemade gifts again? Some things never change." I smiled, thinking about the alerts waiting on my phone. As CEO of Pinnacle Financial Solutions, one of the largest private banking firms in the country, I'd spent the past year quietly acquiring the debt of every family member who'd ever mocked my modest lifestyle. "You know me," I replied mildly, "always keeping things simple." My sister-in-law Amanda swept in, dripping in designer labels, all purchased on credit cards that reported to my subsidiaries. "Oh, how creative," she said, eyeing my packages with barely concealed disdain. "We went with Gucci this year. For everyone." "Of course you did," I murmured, checking my phone. The alerts were ready. With one tap I could freeze every credit card, loan and line of credit my family had been using to maintain their illusion of wealth. Mom bustled over, already 3 glasses into the expensive wine Mark had boasted about. "Darling, you really should let your brother's financial advisor help you with investments. Living in that tiny apartment, driving that old car, it's just not appropriate for a Mitchell. If they only knew that I own not just my tiny apartment, but the entire building. Or that my old car was one of 100 vehicles in my company's fleet." I'd spent years cultivating this image of modest means while building an empire that now held the financial futures of everyone in this room. "Speaking of finances," Mark called out, gathering everyone's attention, "who's ready for the gift exchange? Amanda and I really outdid ourselves this year." I watched as they distributed their elaborately wrapped packages, each one purchased with credit that ultimately traced back to my companies. Through a complex web of acquisitions, Pinnacle Financial had become the majority holder of their mortgages, car loans and credit card debt. "Your turn, Sarah," Amanda prompted with false sweetness. "What did you manage to create this year?" I handed out my packages, each containing carefully crafted photo albums documenting family memories. Inside each album I'd hidden the one thing they valued most: their credit card statements annotated to show exactly who owned their debt. "Oh," Mom said, forcing enthusiasm as she opened hers. "Another album?" Mark didn't even bother opening his. "Maybe next year you can afford real presents, sis. My financial advisor could help you understand basic investment strategies." I checked my phone again. Everything was in place. "Actually," I said quietly, "why don't we talk about financial strategies right now?" "Please," Mark laughed. "What would you know about finance? You work in some tiny consulting firm." I pressed the alert confirmation on my phone. Across the room, phones began buzzing with transaction declined notifications. "Odd," I said, watching their faces. "You might want to check those messages." The scene unfolded exactly as I'd choreographed. Amanda was the first to react, her face paling as she read the message on her phone. "There must be some mistake," she stammered, frantically tapping at her screen. "All my cards are showing as frozen." Mark pulled out his wallet, rifling through his collection of premium credit cards. "Mine too. Must be a system glitch. I'll call the bank." "Which bank?" I asked innocently. "Meridian Trust? Atlantic Federal? Or maybe Premier Credit?" I paused, watching comprehension slowly dawn on their faces. "Because they all report to Pinnacle Financial Solutions now." Mom's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. "Pinnacle? But that's one of the largest financial institutions in the country." "Yes," I agreed, finally dropping my carefully maintained facade. "And I'm its CEO and majority shareholder." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the expensive Christmas music playing through Mark's state-of-the-art sound system, financed through one of my subsidiaries, seemed to hold its breath. "That's impossible," Mark finally managed. "You run a small consulting business. You live in a one-bedroom apartment." "Actually," I pulled out my tablet displaying Pinnacle's corporate structure. "That consulting business was just a cover. And that one-bedroom apartment is the entire penthouse floor of a building I own." Amanda had gone from pale to almost green. But our mortgage is held by Pinnacle Financial, yes." I scrolled through their financial records on my tablet. "Along with your car loans, credit cards, And that rather impressive line of credit you used to furnish this house. Why? Mom whispered. Why pretend to be struggling? Because, I leaned back enjoying the moment, I wanted to see who you really were. How you treated family members you thought were less successful than you. And you showed me year after year, Christmas after Christmas. Mark's face had turned an interesting shade of red. You can't just freeze our accounts. It's Christmas. Can't I? I smiled. Check those photo albums I gave you. Behind the family pictures, you'll find detailed records of every loan, every credit card, every financial obligation you have, all ultimately controlled by my company. They rushed to open the albums they'd dismissed moments ago, papers spilling out onto the expensive marble floors. This is a joke, Amanda declared, but her voice trembled. You're just trying to scare us. I pressed another button on my phone. The room's multiple screens lit up with my company's logo and a live feed of Pinnacle's trading floor. Does this look like a joke? I asked. While you were all mocking my modest lifestyle, I was building one of the largest financial institutions in the world. Every credit card decline you just received was authorized directly by my office. But the trust fund, Mom interjected weakly. Your portion of the family trust is what I used as seed money to start Pinnacle, I finished for her. That small inheritance you all thought I was living off? I turned it into a multi-billion-dollar company while you were busy maxing out credit cards. Mark was frantically dialing numbers on his phone. I'm calling Richardson at Premier Credit. He'll sort this out. Richardson? I raised an eyebrow. Thomas Richardson? He was promoted to Executive Vice President of Pinnacle Financial last month. Would you like me to connect you to his office? The Christmas tree lights cast dancing shadows across their shocked faces as the reality of their situation sank in. Every financial lifeline they might have reached for led back to me. The Aspen Chalet, Amanda said suddenly. The one we just put a deposit on. Was listed by a real estate firm owned by Pinnacle, yes. I pulled up the contract on my tablet. Interesting choice, by the way, considering you're already overextended on this house. Mom had started crying quietly. Sarah, honey, we didn't know. That's exactly the point, isn't it? I stood up, smoothing my cheap sweater that probably cost more than Amanda's entire designer outfit. You never bothered to know. You were too busy judging, too busy flaunting wealth you didn't actually have. What do you want? Mark asked, his arrogance finally cracking. Money? Public apologies. What I want, I replied calmly, is for you to understand something fundamental about wealth and worth. Real success doesn't need to be broadcasted. Real power doesn't need to be flaunted. I pressed another button on my phone and their cards reactivated with soft pings. I'm not going to destroy you financially, I continued. That would be too easy. Instead, I'm going to teach you about responsible financial management. Starting tomorrow, you'll all be assigned personal financial advisors from Pinnacle. Your credit limits will be adjusted to reasonable levels. Your loans will be restructured. You're putting us on allowances? Amanda looked horrified. I'm teaching you the difference between appearing wealthy and building actual wealth. I picked up one of their discarded Gucci gift boxes. Everything in this room was bought on credit that I control. Maybe it's time you learned to live within your means. Mom had found her voice again. The country club membership will remain active, I assured her. Though you might want to check who owns the club now. Pinnacle's subsidiary acquisitions have been extensive. I gathered my things, preparing to leave. Oh, and Mark? That financial advisor you keep offering to connect me with? He works for me too. In fact, he's been reporting on your financial decisions for the past year. You can't just leave, Mark protested. It's Christmas dinner. Actually, I have a board meeting in an hour. Running a global financial institution doesn't stop for holidays. I paused at the door. But don't worry, your new financial advisors will be in touch tomorrow. Consider it my Christmas gift to you, a chance to learn what real wealth management looks like. As I walked to my car, not the modest sedan they were familiar with, but the Bentley I usually kept hidden, my phone buzzed with messages from them all. Apologies, explanations, pleas for leniency. I smiled, thinking about the lessons they'd learn in the coming months. Sometimes the best revenge isn't cutting people off. It's showing them exactly how much power they never knew you had. My assistant's message flashed on the screen. Board meeting in 45 minutes. Should I mention the family situation? No, I replied. Just have our financial education team ready to start tomorrow. It's time my family learned that true wealth isn't about what you can buy on credit. It's about what you can build when no one's watching. Because sometimes the quietest person at the Christmas dinner table isn't poor. They're just busy building an empire while everyone else is busy showing off.